All right, now, despite the high cost of food, which we've discussed numerous times on this podcast, do you still find you're still often throwing out a lot of it? Because if so, you're not alone. Because according to new research from OzHarvest, Australian households are throwing out a whopping 113 kilograms of perfectly good food each year, worth $1,500. And the biggest wasters are young adults under 35 who are throwing out 70% more than their parents' generation. Now, this sounds like a real problem, but also a saving opportunity because if we can find a way to avoid throwing out so much food, we can reduce our grocery bills. Joining us to discuss this research and hopefully share some tips on how to reduce our food waste is OzHarvest National Food Waste Campaign Manager Monique Llewellyn. G'day, Monique. Welcome to the Savings Tip Jar.
Thanks, Dom. Nice to be here.
Thanks for joining us, Monique. Looking forward to this topic. But before we launch into it, do you have a savings tip for us?
I do. I have a very specific savings tip for you today,
That's good.
Harrison. In my household, spaghetti bolognese is always on the menu. I've got 2 young kids. And with rising prices of groceries, one thing that I've started doing is when I make my spag bowl, I actually mix it with a can of lentils because you get extra fiber, extra protein. The lentils just absorb all the flavors of the spag bowl and it bulks it out, so you get much more bang for your buck. And my kids never even notice they're in there.
That's a fantastic one. I've never heard
I
of
love that
that,
tip.
and I'm definitely going to give that one a try because we're trying to sneak vegetables into our 20-month-old son, and we're finding it very hard. But lentils in the spag bowl, I'll have to give that one a crack, particularly if
Yeah.
he's not aware of
And
it. I love it.
exactly. They can't taste it. And it's like $1 for a can, right? And it adds all
Yeah,
these extra
true.
nutrients. And you get like almost twice the amount of spag bowl that
Yeah,
you would normally have.
yeah, and good
Amazing.
source of protein too. Now,
Yeah.
getting into this research, Monique. So you guys surveyed over 3,000 households, and as mentioned, people are throwing out 113 kilograms of food each year, which I think has said that's like a Payne Haas, who's a big rugby league player, in case you don't follow it, every year, which is kind of
Payne
mental.
Haas thrown out every year.
Yeah, that's the word. That's the one. But yeah, what I found quite interesting was younger generations seem to be the biggest culprits there. What's the go with that?
Yeah, it's quite surprising that that came out of this research. I mean, no one is immune from food waste. Everybody has, a bag of soggy spinach hiding away in their fridge. And there are so many different reasons why food ends up getting wasted. But yes, surprisingly, households with under 35 are wasting more than 70% of the older generations. And a lot of it comes down to not storing food correctly. A lot of the most wasted foods are fresh produce, fresh veg, and fruit, but also date label confusion. So a lot of people are still confused around best before, use by. They often treat them the same when actually they're really different. And I feel like the younger generations, what we saw from this research is that they're less likely to trust their own instincts and they're more likely to be overly reliant on those date labels and overly cautious, which often means they're throwing out food that's perfectly good and could be eaten. So, best before is just an indicator of quality. It is absolutely safe to eat food past that date, and you can just use your senses. Whereas older generations, they were around before food labels came out in the 70s, and they know that you can tell by the look of it, the smell of it, the taste of it. They're more likely to go with their senses, whereas the younger generations are a bit more cautious, not as confident, and they're just chucking stuff in the bin that was perfectly good. So we also saw that particularly with the younger generations, leftovers, home cooked leftovers, so that spag bowl I mentioned before is often ending up in the bin. So whether that's cooking too much or having it in the fridge and it's getting lost in the back or getting bored of eating the same thing. So there's a few different reasons, but they're kind of the key things that the research showed with the younger generations.
Yeah, for sure. That reminds me, I've got a bag of rocket in the fridge that needs to go. It always feels bad chucking out food, but sometimes it does happen. And for maybe younger generations as well, it's not like they're necessarily, more wasteful. Maybe they're more on the go. Can you explain a bit more this leftover epidemic? Because for me personally, it's like, it'll be right. I'll get to those leftovers eventually, and then like a week goes by, and then you go, oh, okay, maybe I need to chuck those leftovers out now. Can you explain that in a bit more detail?
Yeah, and look, I think no one ever has the intention of wasting food because no one wants to throw money in the bin. And particularly with leftovers, you've spent so much time purchasing that food, cooking that food, storing that food. So a lot of effort has gone into it. But we do live a very fast paced lifestyle and plans do change and chop. So some simple things that you can do is make sure they're stored in a clear container. Because I don't know about you, but when you looked in a packed fridge and there's just a whole lot of containers and you can't see what's in there, you tend to forget what's in there, particularly if you're in a share house with other people as well. You can use your freezer as a pause, so just save it in a single serve and pop it in the freezer, or repurpose it into something new. So for the spag bowl example, you could add some Mexican spices, throw it on top of some rice, add some avocado, and then all of a sudden you've got a Mexican meal. So you've completely
Nice.
transformed it into something else. But it's just about that planning. And I think planning to fail in the sense that knowing if you live a pretty fast paced life, that it is likely that something's going to get forgotten or you might change your plans. So accounting for that when you're planning for the week and accounting for that you're probably not going to come home one of the nights or order Uber Eats or head out with some friends and just popping things in the freezer and then using them as you go.
Yeah, absolutely. I often keep thinking that I need to start adding in my calendar, the use by date deadlines for certain, packets of meat and whatnot, because there's been that many times in the past. I think particularly when I was, quite new to living out of home, maybe 10 years ago or so, where, I'd buy a whole bunch of chicken or whatever and maybe leave it at the back of the fridge and I forget about it and I pull it out and it's 5 days past its use by date. And I've just got this, $20 packet of chicken that I've just had to throw the whole thing out. And I'm just thinking, oh, what's wrong with me?
I know.
Yeah,
And
for
it's
certain markets,
devastating to throw it out, right? You're like, what a
I
waste.
know.
Gosh, and then you kick
Well,
yourself every
it's also just to
time.
think that that animal just lived and died for nothing. I've got all of its best, yeah, it's all the meat on it.
And do
It's
you know
just gone
what?
into the bin.
Yeah, and Dom, we actually have a really good solution for that. So we developed a product called the Use It Up tape. It's made out of paper and it's for exactly just that. And most of the time, it's like you don't see things in your fridge, they're buried in there. And you can use the tape to mark out a shelf in your fridge. Or what we do in our house is we kind of tear it and use it like stickers. And it's the bright yellow and black OzHarvest colors. So it stands out like a sore thumb, which is the intention. And when you open the fridge, it pops out to you and you're like, oh, that's right, that chicken. I'm out for the next 2 nights. That's not going to happen. Let me just throw it into the freezer. Or if you're like, ooh, that spinach that's been sitting there for a while that I opened on Tuesday, it's probably not going to last much longer. Why don't I either freeze it in a nice cube tray with some oil and we can throw it in a curry later, or pop it in with some ice and we can throw it into a spag bowl next time. So it's just that visual reminder to use up what you have. Like might be some yogurt that's coming up to the end of its life. So it's really simple, but it actually has a really big impact. And we found when we did research previously on the efficacy of the tape that it reduced household food waste by 40%. So that's putting a lot of money back into your pocket. And you can order the tape online for free. We offer it complimentary through OzHarvest. So it's a really simple tool just to help you remind you to use that chicken.
Yeah, for sure.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'll
Chicken's
have
one
to
of
give that
those
one a shot.
kind of more dicey ones, for sure. And it certainly makes, like at least my partner, the hairs on the back of her neck stand up when there's chicken that's a few days away from expiry, for sure. But Monique, one of my favorite things is actually looking in the fridge and, like some people might see a bare fridge with one zucchini and like one other little item, but my mind instantly goes, yeah, I need to consume this all in the one dish and get pretty creative with the recipes. Is that something you're noticing from OzHarvest in this sort of like cost of living crisis? Are people more acutely aware of, what they need to do to reduce their food costs? Or is it kind of almost the opposite effect where people are eating and cooking at home more, but then they're producing more and potentially producing more waste?
I think it's a mixture of all different things and it depends on the household. So food waste just occurs for so many different reasons. But what you're doing, Harrison, is perfect, which is just giving it a go and getting creative and trying to make something out of what you've got. You can pretty much add veggies to anything that you've got. You can kind of throw them into anything. And interestingly, veggies is one of the key items and key categories that gets wasted just because it does deteriorate much quicker than, say, the rice in your pantry. So particularly like tomatoes, carrots, leafy greens and herbs. So storing them correctly, but then throwing them into anything and just having a go. We provide a lot of content on our social media with ideas around what you could do with these items, but you can simply Google recipes, you can put it into AI, you can look at the recipes we've got online, but it's more about just having the ability and the confidence to give it a go and to try, and know that no matter what, if you throw a bunch of spices or some butter in there, things always generally taste pretty good. So even accounting for that, like we were talking about earlier, Dom, we're just going, okay, once a week, let's just keep this day for whatever's left in the fridge and throw whatever we've got in there into, anything can go into a stir fry. Most things can go into a curry. Just keeping it really simple and having some dedicated time to throw it all in.
Yeah, certainly worth doing an audit of your fridge and maybe even your freezer, at least every 3 days or so, just to double check. Wait, oh, that's right, I do have that meat over there, and getting those OzHarvest yellow and black stickers and put them on them so it's visible. Now, OzHarvest obviously does a lot of great work in the community, Monique. But just for those that maybe don't know too much about you guys, do you mind just giving a quick overview of what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So most people will know us for our vibrant yellow vans that are scooting around the whole country. So we rescue food that is good quality, and perfectly edible from farms, supermarkets, cafes, restaurants, and we deliver that food often in the same day to people in need. So we're kind of known as the charity for charity. So every day we have our vans on the road rescuing that perfectly good food to stop it from going in the bin. And one of the wonderful things about that was kind of a lovely side effect that our founder, Ronnie Khan, didn't realize, is that also is helping with the environment, because food, when it goes into landfill, has a really negative effect. It produces methane, which is far worse than CO2, and that contributes to climate change. So when you're keeping food out of the bin, not only does it help save money and save perfectly good food from going to waste and all the resources that went into it, it's also having a really positive environmental impact. But we also try and tackle food waste from every single angle. So from funding research like the one we've spoken about today, to practical tools like our Use It Up tape, creating inspiring recipes to transform leftovers. We also have a lot of education programs where we are in schools around the country, in primary schools and high schools, through our Feast education program and our Nest education program, which teaches the recipients who are receiving the food how to cook healthy and delicious meals. And we also advocate for change. So we work with all levels of government and industry to help advocate to actually change the rules and regulations to reduce food waste. So we're trying to tackle it from every angle. We'd love to put ourselves out of business, is what our founder always says, and we'd love no one to go hungry.
Yeah, for sure. Now, Dom, that packet of chicken you'd chucked out 10 years ago is now contributing to climate change. So thanks for that.
I know.
But at risk of, I guess, being too harsh on the everyday person who's dealing with bills and, they're trying to manage a work and kids and keep food on the table, what are some ways we can end this on a high note, Monique? Like, what are some sort of takeaway tips that you might like to provide to help people reduce food wastage without feeling guilty about it?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of it is going back to the basics of what our grandparents did. So planning and lists before you shop. People who do plan and writing shopping lists significantly waste less food. So it's just about getting organized, which can be difficult for those of us who are living a busy, fast-paced life, and we want to be realistic about those circumstances. So like we were saying before, make sure you have a day where you're probably going to be out, so don't purchase food for that day. Or if you happen to be home, you can eat something from your freezer. Leave a day to throw up, anything you've got left over into a stir fry. Create a Use It Up shelf in your fridge. You can use the tape, or you can just create a dedicated area. And start getting creative with your leftovers, transform them into new meals, and check what you've got before you go shopping, which can sound really simple, but my husband and I fall prey to this every time we go to purchase more milk, and then we realize we've got another carton hidden in the fridge.
Yeah,
so
all the time.
Simple things can make a huge impact in reducing food waste, which is great for the environment, but also really great for your wallet. So just getting back into those really simple habits and being realistic about what the everyday, schedule of food looks like in your household.
Well, on that note, I better quickly go check my fridge and just double check that there's nothing in there that's going off today. Monique Llewellyn, thanks so much for your time on the Savings Tip Jar podcast. Really appreciated your tips and your insights on food waste.
Wonderful. Thanks for having me, Dom and Harrison.
Thank you.